Should we rank Kansas?
I was going to say, are we doing it tomorrow's Top 25 Today segment? Because if we are, we're starting it right now.
We're running out of segues if not, so yes.
If Kansas is not ranked tomorrow, I want everybody listening, everybody watching to write their local congressperson and demand that the Kansas Jayhawks are ranked, because there is absolutely no reason for them not to be other than their name is Kansas, so you don't think they're good. They are 4-0. They beat a undefeated Duke team today. They've now got 2 road wins, one over West Virginia, one over Houston. They've beaten 2 Power 5 teams. Look around the country, look at all the 4-0 teams, and tell me how many of those 4-0 teams have 2 wins over Power 5 teams and 2 road wins. I'd love to know how many teams in this country right now have a resume like Kansas's. There is no reason for them not to be ranked. Jalen Daniels is playing fantastic. He is somebody who, if he wasn't playing for Kansas and was putting up the numbers that he's putting up, we would be discussing him as a Heisman dark horse. But since he plays for Kansas, a Heisman player for the Jayhawks, come on, let's be real. Kansas should not only be ranked, it should be in the top 10. I'm saying it. There aren't 10 other teams that have played better than Kansas this season. Don't just rank them. Look at all those top 10 teams that lost today. USC might be on the verge of joining them right now. Put Kansas in the top 10, or you don't know what you're doing and you don't deserve a vote.
Florida State has wins away from home and 3 wins over Power 5 teams. Syracuse has 3 wins over Power 5 teams, but a lot of them are at home in the Dome.
Rank the
Oregon State. Yeah, if Oregon State beats USC, they definitely need to be ranked.
Oregon State. Yeah. You know who else should be ranked? They lost today. They should pull a Texas. Maryland should be ranked, because Maryland is much better than I thought. Like,
those DBs were covering guys, man.
Yes.
I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, they were manning up. They were just getting right in their grill, and they weren't letting them get by. Then the one difference to me too on the other side of the ball, Maryland was blocking Michigan. I haven't seen Maryland block a good defensive front in years, and they were doing it today. They were giving Tully all sorts of time. That was one of those cases to me where I was like, okay, they lost the game, but I think Maryland's legit. I think they are one of the 25 best teams in the country. They lost to Michigan. It was number 4. But they're still 3-1. USC just scored a touchdown, by the way. But they're 3-1, and their lone loss is to a top 4 team, and they hung within 7 of them on the road. Maryland's probably one of the 25 best teams in the country right now.
So if we're going to go, but then we got to bring this back. This is actually very good.
Who drops out?
I've been I've just total transparency here. I've been furiously trying to finish this assignment while we've been here on the podcast. So Minnesota does not have a fantastic profile the way that Kansas does.
Should be ranked.
But Minnesota is outscoring its opponents 183-24.
Should be ranked, yeah. You want to get – I'll tell you what teams you get out of there. Get Miami out.
Yep.
Yes. So I've got Texas, Pitt in tomorrow's top 25 today. So the easy ones are Texas, Pitt, Miami, you're out.
Mm-hmm.
We're dropping Pitt after they won?
Hell yeah.
Your best win is West Virginia.
All right, Florida is out.
Honestly, I'm not ranking Texas A&M. Like, if you look at what Texas A&M has done,
A&M's not a top 25 team.
What have they done besides start the year ranked in the top 10? That's been impressive.
Should Arkansas be out? Because they have wins over South Carolina and Cincinnati.
But Cincinnati also beat Indiana, so it's like Cincinnati is kind of knocking on the door. Cincinnati will show up on some ballots on Sunday. I don't think they will end up in the top 25, but Cincinnati is a top 25 team in the eyes of some voters. And I think that while your opinion on Texas A&M is fine, if my job is to predict the AP top 25 shooting habits.
Oh, if we're trying to predict it, yeah. Status quo unless you lost. Maintain the proper causal relationship with your initial poll. Thus, Kentucky is somehow going to. Kentucky's going to move up, right? Top 5 Kentucky team.
Probably will, but they should
next week.
That is, if that's one of the 10 best teams in the country right now, we are in for a long, boring ass season.
No,
I don't think it's like a top 20, top 25 type team, man.
You don't get all it.
They don't look good at all.
This works itself out. Ole Miss plays Kentucky next week. Someone's taking a hike. Both teams are undefeated. Someone's taking a hike.
No, they'll both still be in the rankings the next week. Be real.
Danny's right about this. It's SEC. Yeah. They'll keep them in. I mean, like Arkansas with that defense.
Are you getting Baylor out?
No, Baylor won.
No, Baylor. This actually kind of soured my whole day, man. That targeting call on just a textbook tackle to start the day. And then Baylor went right at the backup safety for Iowa State the whole rest of the game. Like, that's where a lot of their explosives came out of it. Football should just be an assumption of the risk game. If you play this, you might get hurt. You might get hurt badly, right? You might get some brain damage, just like boxing. We're not changing people's behavior like this. I really don't think I don't know how else you would teach a guy to tackle. The running back is lowering into him.
I agree with you on that hit in Baylor, Iowa State, but I will say you were 100% wrong on the targeting in Virginia, Syracuse on Friday night. Kid lowered his head and was looking at the ground when he made contact with the top of his helmet. If that's not targeting, nothing is.
But shouldn't the running back get tossed too for going down like that? I mean, if he's lowered himself into the strike zone.
He didn't lower his shoulder. The tackler lowered his head and hit him like this. That's targeting.
I mean, did he hit him in the head?
He hit him with the top of the. See what you hit. That dude saw his shoelaces. Yeah. That's all he saw.
Are you throwing Wake Forest out of the top 25?
No.
But they around with Liberty.
21 going into it. They don't have a lot of quality wins, but boy, they just they sure looked like a good football team on Saturday.
I think Ohio State can stick around. By the way, what does that tell you about like the state of Wisconsin this year, and that Ohio State crushes them and we don't even mention it till like what minute are we? Like minute 63?
Oh, I think Ohio State might take number 2 from Bama.
It might.
They play tomorrow. Ohio State's beating them.
Yeah, I'm projecting that Ohio State takes number 2 from Bama because I think Georgia is going to lose its grip on those first place votes. And the margin between Ohio State and Bama was really close. And I think that if voters are going to jump off of Georgia and decide either Alabama or Ohio State crushing Wisconsin is going to do more than Alabama thumping Vanderbilt. So I think it is. I mean, it's not a bold take. These teams might be able to like swap 2 and 3 all season long. But given what happened this week, if you were a little disturbed by the Kent State final score, and you're an AP voter who just covers one team and didn't watch all the games and you're just checking the scores app on your phone, you might decide that score against Wisconsin is more impressive. So
also, to further your point, I did see some tweets today from the CFB Twitterati that Ohio State should be ranked number 1. So that means we're going to see some Ohio State number 1 ballots, and USC is going to win and survive.
Yeah, 59 out of 63 first place votes are with Georgia. My prediction at the top was that Georgia will still be number 1, but they will not have 59 first place votes. And so I think that Alabama is probably going to end up, that Ohio State is probably going to end up getting some of those and then making a little jump. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. And I wasn't suggesting that Baylor's going to fall out. I am projecting that Baylor's still going to be very close to where they were. I was just saying, who else are you going to throw out of the top 25 as you try to make room? I think Kansas is in. I think Minnesota is in. I think Florida State is in. And then I think that you're looking at like Cincinnati. It's probably on the edge. Earlier.
Can I push back on Minnesota?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
dare you.
We have no evidence that Michigan State is worth a damn this year. They got totally crushed by Washington State, and then they racked up a ton of points in garbage time. All right. After the game was just over. They did not look very good in the opener against Akron, who isn't very good. They look like crap today. Minnesota also beat Colorado, who, UCLA played its D game and won by 30-something today. This schedule is just totally pathetic for Minnesota. I'm not saying that Minnesota is not a good team. If you were power rating this, I do think Minnesota is probably a top 25 type team based on their quality of their defense. But if we're doing this based on, I know it's not only who you played, but how you've played, and that's fair. But you do have other teams out there that are just totally crushing bad schedules too. And
but they're not Minnesota like Minnesota.
Not like Minnesota.
That's fair.
Minnesota's won by 40 points per game.
And what is it? The available point stat that all you nerds use? Apparently they're doing real good about that, where it's they've gotten 86% of their available points, and then they've only allowed 7% of the available points.
I think it's available yards, but yeah, or maybe it is points, but basically it's like, hey, if you start on your own 13, you have 87 available yards, right?
What is it about that available points, that stat that you nerds use? I hear they're doing pretty good at that.
Minnesota had more voting points in last week's balloting than Kansas did. Minnesota had just shot. So the others receiving votes last week was Michigan State, was the first team out, the team that Minnesota just beat at home. Florida State, App State, which just lost to James Madison. North Carolina, which just lost to Notre Dame. Washington State, which just lost to Oregon. Cincinnati, which did beat Indiana.
Indiana stinks.
Indiana's, yeah.
Oregon,
Indiana's the worst Power 5 team east of the Rockies.
Oregon State, which obviously just looks like just came up short against USC, and then Minnesota. So they were already on ballots last week. You throw a convincing road win against Michigan State on there, that's a top 25 team on Sunday. Oh, Northwestern lost to Miami of Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Big Ten sucks.
I think my Twitter DMs must be broken because I got these like 7. I think there's only 7 Northwestern fans. But when I said Helinski wasn't very good, after they put up points on Nebraska, which is kind of like North Carolina defense light, I got all these DMs from Helinski lovers. But now I don't. I don't know. I haven't gotten any in recent weeks, which is very weird. Yeah. Shout out Chuck Martin going in there winning without Gabbert. Like, I don't know if like how many of our listeners know, like Gabbert may be out for the year, but he's out for a while at least. They go in there and win with a backup quarterback. That's pretty impressive.
Listen, it's a tough stretch of the schedule. Southern Illinois and Miami of Ohio back-to-back weeks. That's, not a lot of people can survive that.
Oh my gosh, they lost 2 in a row.
Yeah.
Oh no. Or 3 all the way back to Duke.
Yeah. I mean, they've lost to Duke, Southern Illinois, and Miami, Ohio. But Duke's decent. Like, that's the one takeaway I too had from that Kansas Duke game. It's like, I don't think Duke is very good, but Duke is decent.
Yeah, Duke's gonna end like I don't know where we are with the whole Geoff Collins thing, but Duke beating Georgia Tech in Atlanta. That could be where this thing ends.
It will not be an upset. Duke is better than Georgia Tech.